Greetings, everybody. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to the very first episode of a new series covering Land of the Vikings. This series will be a tutorial Let's Play, and if you would like to skip the overview of the game or the scenario setup, please use YouTube chapters. Land of Vikings is a colony building survival game, sort of like Banished or Farthest Frontier, where you survive harsh winters, enemy Viking raids, and natural disasters, often caused by displeased Norse gods. I'll be playing through the tutorial and a little beyond, probably, and you live viewers are going to be able to vote on important decisions, as well as how the settlement progresses. And, like always, it will air on YouTube. So right off the bat, we get to design our banner and name our village. Jotunheim, as many of you probably could have assumed. And let's get a wolf banner as well. Yoda's white. We'll put that on like gray, maybe? Make it a little smaller. In fact, small as it can go. And that's our banner. There's a whole bunch of different maps to play from. Because this stream is only 4 hours, it doesn't really matter how large the map size is, as we're not likely to fill up a small map in 4 hours. But there's small land with the map resources are high, and the resource distance, which is quite important, is very near. There's valley with far distant resources, but it's larger. Green Bay, which is big, with closer. Green Bay's probably, I haven't played all the maps, but I imagine that's the easiest, given its size. White River, which is one of the harder ones, because the map resources are lower and the resource distances are farther out. And mountains, very big, mountainous map. But, and a lone island. That might be pretty difficult as well. I haven't actually tried that one. But I'm going to do small land because it will be cozy. I will be enabling the tutorial and enabling disasters, for better or for worse. My 2 cents, some of the disasters aren't exactly balanced and are pretty punitive, punishing the player, but we'll enable them all the same. Glitch, prize it. Thank you for the bits, and Mudcomplex for the resub. A 2-year anniversary resub too. I will drink to that. Cheers. So this is the beginning of the tutorial. Welcome to your village. You can learn how to develop and manage your village by following this tutorial. In this section, there are keys that you will need to use to develop the village. Cutting down trees, and I'm going to skim some of this because it is somewhat verbose at times, but cutting down trees. Available villagers will cut down trees of your choice and take the wood to the warehouses. Gathering stone, same deal, like the wood, but with stone. The tutorial of construction. By pressing this button, you can select to build from the menu. If you have enough resources and builders, the construction will start. Demolishing, where you can get back resources for breaking down buildings. But the resources in the item, like if you destroy like a warehouse, items in the warehouse, for instance, may be destroyed. So be careful with that. Roads, and your villagers like to walk on roads. They help to speed up distant travel. And then down in the bottom left is the management section. From this section, you will see resources, villagers, and other management tools in your village. You can stop or determine the speed of the game from this section. So stop 1, 2, 8, or 12 speed. This is definitely one of those games that you can play on 12 speed, but you might miss a lot. I feel like Farthest Frontier and Banished was like that too, where you could speed ahead if you really knew what you were doing. But there's a lot of granularity in this game, meaning that if you play on a really accelerated speed, you could be blundering into pitfalls without realizing it, or time to make corrections, like famine or mass resource starvation or something like that. Time of day and also seasons are at the top. And then the basic camera controls is WASD and Q and E, which is this prompt here. Advanced camera controls. So holding middle mouse button will pan. Scroll wheel will zoom. And then you can hold left shift to move the camera faster. I will say I do know of a bug where if you hold left shift to move the camera faster, sometimes the camera will like drift awkwardly, where like you'll start going left and then you'll stop, and then the camera will just keep going left for a while. So avoid holding left shift for quicker camera panning if that bug bothers you. So this is our starting village. We have the very important longhouse, which is sort of the central governance building. We have got a carpenter here, and then 3 bad houses. Bad is about its insulation qualities, really. Bad houses are harder to heat in the winter than good ones, but you don't get good ones until much later on in the game. So the first order of business is for us to gather wood and stone. The objective here is in the bottom left, where we have to order trees to be cut down and rocks to be dug. So trees will regrow, and actually regrow rather quickly. They only take about a season or 2 to regrow, so you don't have to worry about like overcutting trees. However, these stones are not replaceable. You eventually gain access to what is called a stone pit in order to be able to get stone, renewable resource of stone. And the stone pits can be found around the map. Like this, for instance, is where you can build a stone pit, so it's on a predetermined location. The same is true of things like iron and coal. So use your stone well, in other words. So, in order to cut down trees, you get a little paintbrush and you just paint where you want them to cut. And then you can also undo it by holding left control. So, right off the bat, one thing that I would advise is plan on clearing land with where you are going to expand your buildings, and also farming in mind. Farming is probably best done on flat terrain, because if it's hilly, it will be difficult to actually lay out a farm. And then people like to live roughly where they work to cut down commute time, ideally. So with that in mind, I'll probably want to cut down some of these trees off to the east, as I can build and expand in that direction. And then also get the trees behind the longhouse. But I'm going to start with just these trees here. And then for stone, get the stone that is closest. Now, if you're wondering about work priorities, if you click on your longhouse, your population that aren't like children or elderly will automatically do some of the laboring tasks. And you can set the priority. So I can say, hey, cut trees or mine stone at a higher priority if there's a preference between the two. The next objective is to assign a job. So we go to the carpenter here, and this little red icon means that no one is working, and also that it is closed. And later on in the tech tree, you gain the ability to automatically assign whoever's going to be the best possible worker. And I do realize the UI is covering this up a little bit. So for... Here, let me hide the UI so you can see it a little bit better. For the carpenter specifically, the advantageous trait is someone that is powerful or strong. So that brings me to the village screen. Your villagers fall into families. And each family wants their own house to be able to start their own families, but I'll get into that a little bit later. But in terms of the village population, when we go to click to assign villagers, you can sort by certain traits. So there's luck. Luck is useful for things like herb gatherers or fishermen. There's power, which is good for like farming, mining, etc. Intellectual, which is good for weaving and what else is... I forget some of the other tasks that are int-based. Weaving, tailoring, smithing. And then there is speed, which is good for people that are stockpiling or hauling, things of that nature. So I'm going to assign Revna, who has really high power. And then the next part of this objective is to activate the carpentry. So right now this little stopped is because the work status is closed. And all I have to do is click that button to open it up. The other thing worth noting is that there's a set limit. So what this carpenter will be doing will be taking raw wood processed from the woodcutters, cutting down all the trees, and turning it into timber, which is usually the building material of choice. Some buildings do require raw wood, but most require timber. And we can change the set max. I'm going to change it to 100 rather than 60. Nice, even, triple-digit number. Ali K, thank you for the resub. So you'll see that there's tons of villagers heading out to go cut down trees and mine stone in order to gain the resources to do the next objective. The next objective here is to build a marketplace. A marketplace is going to cost wood, stone, timber. So generally stone is used for laying down foundations for buildings, as is wood, and then timber is used to finish the buildings. So up here you have wood, timber, stone, and then you have something called dressed stone, which is, you can think of these as like bricks, which is more of a finishing stone, specifically for certain buildings that use stone. So like houses, for instance, later on will use dressed stone, as will like blacksmiths and the like. Other resources include silver. Silver is really important because it allows you to resolve social issues. It allows you to pay for the construction of certain projects like farms. Then you have gold. Gold is a specialty currency, generally obtained via plunder. It can be used for training heroes and unlocking runics, which is a special newly added feature of this game. It was added about 2 weeks ago for like a secondary tech tree. And then food, number of total meals. So right now, of course, we have a dwindling amount of food available to us, and the tutorial will have us resolving that. Other parts of the UI that I haven't covered, you have the year and the day up top. So it's year 0, day 4. Your total population, your morale or average happiness. Keeping people happy is, of course, better. And then fame. Fame is a sort of currency of sorts. You don't really spend it exactly, but as your village becomes more famous, you gain more runic and other raid opportunities, immigration, etc. So it is a driver of events. And then, of course, defense points, military. We're not going to have military for quite some time, as we're just barely agrarian. The next goal is to build the marketplace. So let's get that going. So what the marketplace does is, and there's a lot of games like this that have similar mechanics, is it's a spot for people that live in homes to be able to essentially shop for what they need. So if we go into the build menu here, and we go to storages, the tooltip says it's where food is stored and where villagers shop. It should be in every village. Silver is earned with every purchase. So this brings me to another point. There's multiple different ways of playing this. So one way to play this would be to min-max everything into some sort of dystopian grid-like pattern where everything is perfectly arranged. You know, imagine like Anno, for instance, because Anno kind of forces you to do that in order to, you know, succeed and progress. Or alternatively, have it actually appear like a village, a Viking village. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. This game uses a rather unique system of upgrading buildings. And I want to take advantage of that rather unique system of upgrading buildings, which means that I would like to lay out what appears to be an organic Viking town, rather than what is like an ugly, min-maxed dystopian grid. So about that unique mechanism, the game gives you access to decorations. And these decorations actually improve the buildings that they're built around. So, for instance, if I build a box as a decoration, Well, it's just telling me about the buildings in general. But if I build a box as a decoration around a marketplace, it will actually increase the total capacity of that marketplace because they will use that decoration for storage. So a lot of these decorations are not just decorations, they actually provide a benefit. Like these roadside flagpoles speed people up on roads. These shields increase your defense points, so on and so forth. And there's a whole lot of decorations, and even more get unlocked later on. But yeah, so it's not one of those games where you just like build one stockpile and you forget about it. You can actually dress it up and make it look, era appropriate per se. So that brings me to my next point, city planning, or village planning in this case. So where we're placing the marketplace is probably initially going to be like right in the center, and it will be our first marketplace, and that will support the city center. But future marketplaces might make sense, like in and around stone pits or coal mines or whatever other sort of hunting, gathering, etc., in order to support the communities that do that work. So, but our first one will be right here, smack dab in the middle. And I want to leave enough room to be able to put a road in. There's also a line. So a line will allow you to snap to certain buildings, as you can see, by holding the X key. So if I like stick it next to the longhouse, I can snap it into place. Wow, that carpentry really wants me to align with it. And then you can free rotate it. Buildings can't collide. But yeah, I will put it aligned with the carpentry. Why not? Alright. Now there's different phases of work. This bar up here shows you those phases. So there's a priority button if you want it to be built first. You can also assign and need to assign how many builders that you want working on it. So for now, I'm going to put 3 workers on it, and these workers will be automatically assigned to the project. And the first stage is to lay down sort of like the foundation. Oh, and you guys are getting your first event. Okay. So periodically there will be social prompts like this one, where they have consequences. And I'll read this for you. A grave filled with silver was found. When digging for construction, the villagers noticed that something hit their shovel. When they looked carefully, they realized it was a grave full of silver. It would be best to leave the dead as is, not to incur the wrath of the gods. So we have 3 choices here. We can don't touch the grave and cancel the construction, meaning that our newly placed marketplace will have to move. We can leave the grave alone, but keep building. We don't gain the silver, but we might not incur the wrath of the gods. Or take the silver in the grave and continue construction. We earn the silver, but then also maybe piss the gods off. And the choice is yours. And there will be a lot of these sort of social prompts throughout the game. A lot of them are driven from immigration. When new groups come into your village, they might butt heads with the people that already live there, so on and so forth. So it looks like, well, we're nearly tied, but it looks like don't touch the grave and cancel the construction is winning now. So that's what we'll choose. Now, the thing is, I don't think the game really cares if I, like, place it again. I just lose the progress that I've already made. But in this case, I will actually respect the decision of the results and put the marketplace behind the longhouse. So the objective is to build a marketplace and then assign a marketer. A marketer is someone that will work to stockpile the marketplace. And for this initial pre-materials stage, I need 6 wood, 30 stone. I have 13 wood, 70 stone, so I have plenty of material to be able to get that underway. I am, however, going to queue up some additional tree cutting around where the marketplace is, because I'm going to expand into this direction, I think. If you hold left alt, you can also see what everyone's working on. So you can see that the carpenter has 1 out of 2 workers, and the marketplace has all of the wood stockpiled, but only a 1/6 of the stone, and all the other work tasks that have been queued up. So taking a look at some of the other management screens while we wait for this marketplace to make progress, we have the resource screen, where I can pin it if I want with this little pin here. There's a lot more resources than just what's at the top. What's at the top is just out of convenience. So there is also coal, grain, barley, bread, fruit, fish, white meat from poultry, regular meat from hunting or cattle, or goats, beer, leather, wool, etc., etc. It goes on. And then even into the military clothing, like light and heavy armor, weapon parts, shields, stuff like that. Another thing in the screen is a job list. This is probably very similar to Banished, where you can see what people are working on. So I have 14 laborers. Laborers are going to be building, or rather cutting down trees and mining, that kind of thing. Builders, carpenters, etc. So it gives you at a glance look. The ships that I have, so I have 3 fishing boats that are free. I don't, however, have a fishing pier, so I can't assign these. But they're out here waiting for it if and when I do get a pier. What buildings that I have for building management. So here's the carpenter, and any other work buildings would be included in that. And then for villagers, as I said, there's families. So we have the Sibi, Ulf, and Uba families and their members. And I'm sure their children probably want houses of their own, which we will get to soon in the tutorial. The total population by gender, by age, by, whether or not we have warriors. So light infantry, heavy infantry, archers, shield maidens, berserkers, and who are being currently trained. And then heroes, which we don't have any of, and we won't for some time. The messages are any messages that are coming up, but there is also alerts, which are different. So the alerts is things that need immediate attention, whereas the messages are just informing you of progress or updates, things like that. Whereas the alerts are like, hey, we ran out of resources, or hey, production has stopped. And then, of course, the objective screen. So the marketplace has now been supplied with all of the materials that it needs, and it's almost done. You can see it get built stage by stage, which is, I always like. Okay, marketplace is built. For our tiny population, we probably don't need more than 1 marketer. So I will just assign 1. And the best talent here would be speed, because they're essentially just supplying. So if we sort by speed, bulk build is the fastest. Let me hide the UI again. So up here, we also have supply. So right now, we have the marketplace being supplied by everywhere. But you do later on, once you have different... So I'll propose a scenario. Let's say we have this marketplace here with like 3 farms here with wheat and bread. And then we have another marketplace far flung, let's say over up in here. We might want to set up a situation where the marketplace up here only grabs the farm crops from around it. And the marketplace down here only grabs the farm crops around that. That way they're not running halfway across the map when they're trying to resupply the marketplace. You can set up supply restrictions here so that you only supply from specific facilities. So, for instance, of our marketplace way up in the hills, I'm not maybe going to have them supply fish from the water. because the water's so far away. Maybe instead berries from a gatherer nearby or something like that. So there's a supply and demand and a supply route stuff. All right, so that objective is done. As a result, we gain some silver and fame. The next objective is to decorate the village. So create a road to connect our buildings and have at least 10 decorations. People, in terms of morale, they like when their houses and workplaces are connected by roads. And then there are decorations to improve the houses themselves. So the road tool is very simple. Just you create individual sections, and then if you mouse over where the front doors are, you can see it snaps to it. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to create a very basic road, knowing that like I might actually get rid of what I initially set up, only because the initial houses aren't really in a good location necessarily. And it seems like, oh yeah, I'm able to snake a supply through there. Okay, so they're interconnected now. And the next is the decorations. So I'll show you what that looks like. So I'll probably be adding decorations to the marketplace in order to increase the marketplace's total capacity. So right here, you can see that its current limit is 150 items of stuff, whether it's like food or bread or whatever. So if we go to the decoration tab, I can like lay out barrels. So I'll put one thing of barrels here, unpause for a second, and we should see the limit go up to 155. So I've just added additional supplies to the marketplace because I built a decoration that that increases storage space. And there's also warehouses in the game, and these barrels will do the same for the warehouses. Another thing we could do is to build things that help out with the beauty of the village. So like this gateway, for instance, makes the village look richer, which, if built next to houses, provide extra happiness for the houses, and then also increases the villagers' walking speed on roads. So I'll plop this right next to the main hall. Asymmetrically, it seems. Yeah, I can fix that. Maybe I'll do 2. Even if it's a little asymmetrical, that's okay. Let's also put in... So another thing that people want is to have good illumination. They will complain if their roads and workplaces aren't well illuminated. So another thing we could do is put in some torches. And that way the grounds around the village and the roads are well illuminated, making people happy. And this, oops, I didn't mean to click that, but maybe I'll get rid of that anyway. I'm wasting a lot of silver here, aren't I? So this is what I mean by like truly min-maxed, doesn't really take advantage of all these somewhat more unique systems. And I put a little road sign here. And let's do some monoliths. Some, like, runestone rocks. I think that looks better than the gate anyway. Okay. So, decorate the village is done. I gained some silver and some fame. Do torches require upkeep? No, just the upfront cost of putting them down. So marketers collect all the food in the village into the marketplace, and villagers buy these foods in the marketplace. Just a little tooltip of what that's happening. You can click that twice to get rid of it. So the next step is to gather food. Gathering food is pretty straightforward. We're going to build a little gathering hut. The gathering hut's productivity is based upon the sort of like berries and flowers that you see typically in forests. So if we read the tooltip here, the building where edible fruits and small amounts of medicinal plants from the forest are collected. So here, if I put the gathering hut like on the beach, you know, it's a really low productivity, whereas like up into the hills, it's higher productivity. This is a game mechanic that I'm sure you are all quite familiar with. So I think what I'm going to do is I will plan to leave this little spit of forest relatively undisturbed. So I'm going to put the gathering hut there as a result, knowing that I'm going to be leaving this area alone, so that whoever works in this gathering hut has some old forest growth, which hasn't been cut down frequently in order to gather from. Cheers. And then I'll probably also want a road going out there eventually. However, the pathing is expensive, and I have a finite amount of silver, and I want to save my silver up. So I'm not going to be building that road just yet, because silver is also used to build farms, and that's one of the next tutorial goals. So it's best if I don't waste all my money. So this time I'll try to make an effort to show you the second stage of building. So they're just bringing out some wood and stone for the foundations, but then there's a second stage that will be for timber. Once everything else has been collected. There it goes. So here's stage 2, where it's 6 raw wood and 24 timber in order to construct the actual building. So the total cost of the buildings will, you know, it adds up over time. And it is shown here in pre-materials and materials. So you know the total cost ahead of time, but you can still make progress even if you don't have the materials, as long as you have the pre-materials. Right, I'm going to tell my stone miners not to mine these 2 nodes, and instead mine the stone right in front of the gatherer's hut, so that if I do want to path out to the gatherer's hut, I don't have to go around these stones, even though it's a little bit further to get out to this pile of rock. Another thing you'll notice soon is the areas that I originally cut down trees will start to get saplings. So if you use the tree cutting tool on a sapling, it will remove the sapling. But if you allow the sapling to grow at all, it will then subsequently require you to physically go and cut the tree down once it becomes of a certain size. So if you want to keep land clear, you can just keep painting all the saplings that pop up before they become immature trees, and it doesn't require any additional labor in order to keep the land cleared. But if you want the option to be able to cut down trees, then you can just let it grow. How long till no food becomes a problem? I'm in the tutorial, so it's going to give me a minute. I'm not at risk of, like, starvation just yet, luckily. The thing to note is that these total number of meals counts what is stockpiled in the marketplace, but the individual houses have white meat and regular meat in them at the start of the game. So even though I'm at 0 meals up here, these houses still have stocked food. I think, if memory serves, like Farthest Frontier and Banished also had that mechanic, so that the total number of available food is what is available to everybody, but the individual houses have their own supply. A little confusing at first, but a pretty useful mechanic. That way, when you hit 0 meals, you still have a little bit of leniency before you get like potato famine levels of food scarcity. And for now, it seems like the one carpenter is keeping up with the timber supply demand, so not worried about that. Whoa, JD, thanks for 4-year anniversary. Cheers. All right, this bad boy is done. We'll assign a gatherer. So a gatherer's best traits is speed and luck. In my case, I'm going to pick someone with high speed, because this is relatively far from the town center. And then also there's this little icon over here, which is distance from their home. So Sigbjorn here is 155 meters away from their home, which is exactly why I'm saying it's really helpful for you to have like organic clusters of work. That way people work where they live and live where they work and don't have to travel ridiculous distances, which is something I'm going to attempt to do. So I'm going to actually put 2 gatherers in here. Both are high speed skill. And to complete this part of the objective, I just need to gather my first fruit, which should happen any second now. Gatherers gather fruit and herbs in all seasons except winter. They do not work in winter. And the season up here is currently summer, heading towards, of course, autumn. It's at the start of summer, so the wheel turns clockwise. Except for because of the camera, it's inverted. Just whatever, clockwise. So you can see spring, summer, autumn. Actually, it's counterclockwise, isn't it? I'm just really bad at directions. Our laborers at the moment don't have any tree cut tasks, so I'm going to assign some additional, keep them working, and stockpiling up a nice sizable supply of wood so that when we do a housing boom, we have materials for it. Is this still early access? It is. You can hear all the miners. I'm right now on 12 speed. You can hear all the miners chipping away. Get it! So soon that gathering hut will collect its first fruit and we'll move on in the tutorial. There it goes. So as you can see, they grabbed 4 fruit. Build a warehouse and assign a warehouseman. Build an herbalist hut and assign a doctor. And find herbs. So in terms of finding herbs, the gatherer's hut will do that. The herbs are like, you can see like fruit bushes and herbs around here. So they're going to automatically fulfill the gathering the herbs without having to do anything else. So yeah, it says warehouse, I know. There are some poor translations in this game, kind of scattered around everywhere. Like, I was noticing some others where it's like, complete 3 raid. It's like, okay, maybe it should be plural, but, you know, whatever. So yeah, let's do a warehouse and a warehouseman, or warehouse. Warehouses will store things other than like fruits and veggies. And it's really useful to have them be central because everyone's going to want to deliver to it. So consider putting warehouses where you have resource gathering, like a warehouse next to a stone pit would be wise, a warehouse next to a coal mine would be wise, so on and so forth. At least initially, what I'm going to do here is just put a warehouse. I'm going to put the warehouse right next to the carpenter. And this is because the carpenter uses wood and the warehouse will store wood. And there's also separate special storages just for wood and stone as well. But the warehouse will double for that. Will be both stone, wood, and just general stuff. And then in terms of the herbalist house is where sick people go to become better. So I'm going to put that right in front of the longhouse, pretty much where the grave was. Hopefully we don't incur the wrath of the gods. But there we go. Herbalist and warehouse. Or, it says warehouse up here. It says warehouse in the tutorial. Can I build the fishing dock out of the tutorial's turn? I could just jump ahead and do it anyway, and the tutorial will catch up. I'm just going to be following the tutorial regardless. All right, so here you can see the trees already popping up. It's pretty quick. There is going to be some saplings around as well. But these trees grew enough that they actually require cutting. Oh, here's a case of a sapling, which doesn't require cutting. So you saw there was a tiny little pine sapling there that I cut down before it had time to grow. And that doesn't... Oh, here's another one. So here's a good example of, like, what is that, an oak or something? And I can get rid of the sapling before it actually has time to grow if I want to keep the farmland clear. So here's another example of that. Just like, poof, poof, those trees are gone. Just a demonstration. I don't particularly care if they grow back there, because if I want to add housing back there, I'll just, chop more trees down. Not a big deal. It's easier to chop trees in your own backyard than having to run, like, eighth of a mile or, a few hundred meters back into the hills. I'm going to add one more worker to our builder workforce. Oh, we already have someone who is ill. So I hope this brings me to another thing that I could do. Never mind. The herbalist hut's already built. What I was going to do is do priority here. Click this little priority button to prioritize the herbalist hut over the warehouse so that we could get a doctor. Because one of our herb gatherers and fruit gatherers is already feeling sick. We have not yet found herbs, however. These two gatherers just haven't picked any. So even though I can assign someone who works as an herbalist, that doesn't necessarily mean they can render a lot of aid. But Ulf, you're going to be our herbalist. So the herbalist is done, and now we're just waiting on the warehouse. And hopefully the gatherer will be able to gather medicine for himself. No, I don't think he picked any. But he is going to the doctor's hut, so maybe we'll keep him alive. And the warehouse is done. Ideally someone fast, and I'm going to put Haldora in there. And as soon as we find some herbs, we will achieve the objective. So here, the Ulf, the herbalist, is tending to Sigbjorn, the gatherer. And I'm just going to micromanage this to take Sigbjorn out of the gatherer's hut and to put Bolver in instead. Because I know that we have two people who are actually ill. Not just the gatherer. We have another laborer who's low health. Find those herbs. One thing I could do if I was particularly concerned is to create a road out to the gatherer's hut in order to speed them up. It's gonna make like a 5% difference though, and it's probably not worth the silver. It's also worth mentioning, people die a lot. Your villagers die a lot. A great mass die-off is going to be a problem, but like an individual here or there is very normal for a playthrough of the Land of Vikings. To the point where eventually you unlock the ability to just automatically replace workers without even having to hire them, because it becomes so normal that people perish from all sorts of things. Thank you for tuning in to Land of the Vikings, which originally streamed live on Twitch September 12th. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you would like to join my online gaming community, it also has a link to Discord, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and a special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream of another game. Farewell, my fellow Vikings.